it's Jessii Vee, and today we're going to be continuing our series about kids that mysteriously disappeared. This time we're obviously covering the ones that went missing in the month of April, and all of these take place before the 2000s. Before I get started though, if you guys did not see my last video, I just announced that my mom started a butterfly themed collection on our website. She has a bunch of new purses. She has a gorgeous butterfly umbrella. So if you guys are interested, it's very spring, very summer. They are great gifts for Mother's Day, so yeah, definitely check it out. I have linked it down below. But now, obviously, we're getting into a more serious subject matter, and the very first case we're going to be covering is Michael Lamont Dixon. He disappeared on April 28th of 1987, and he was only 11 years old at the time. This family lived in Illinois, and on one particular night at 10 p.m., the mother put her 7 children to bed, and one of those 7 children was the 11-year-old named Michael. Now, after she knew that her kids were fast asleep, she herself went to bed. But then at 2:45 in the morning, she got a phone call. It was the police, and they were asking her if she knew where her son was. So she of course told them that her son was asleep in bed. So they asked her to go and look, and when she did, she saw that her son was gone. Now, what actually happened to the boy still confuses people to this day. Apparently, he had always had this problem with sleepwalking. And on this particular night that he was sleepwalking, he was found 100 miles away from his house. He was discovered walking along a railroad track in Indiana. Now, the police said that he supposedly hopped onto a freight train and ended up in a different state. They said he suddenly woke up, hopped off the train, and went for help. When they found him, he was apparently barefoot. He was only wearing pants and a t-shirt, and it was freezing outside. But you guys have to agree that this whole story doesn't make any sense, right? His house was also beside a huge creek, and there was no way to get to the train tracks without swimming through it. So wouldn't going through the water have woken him up? Wouldn't he have been pulled downstream if he even tried to do that? And he also would have been found covered in mud, soaking wet. Also, the night he left, no one in his family heard any doors open. And get this, he was supposedly sleepwalking for 5 hours and went 100 miles. Something just doesn't seem right here, and people really agree with that fact. And to this day, no one knows what actually happened to him, and he doesn't even know because he was sleepwalking, apparently. Now, I get that sleepwalking is actually a thing and people do crazy things while they are sleepwalking. But for a kid, a young kid, to go 100 miles with no one stepping in, him not getting hurt, getting on a train, it just seems very odd. Comment down below if you also find this to be a little bit suspicious. But I guess the good thing about all of this is that he was returned to his family and was okay in the end. Next, we have the case of Cody Hyde. He disappeared on April 27th of 1986, and he was only 6 years old at the time. On this particular day, Cody went on a picnic with his family to the Blue Mountains in Oregon. He was with his 10-year-old sister named Carrie, and they were playing this game called Explorers in the forest away from their parents. This is a game that kids made up where each person goes off exploring in opposite directions of the forest. Now, this is obviously a very unsafe game because kids have to go off on their own, which is never good, especially for a 6-year-old. So around 12:30 p.m., the family was unable to find Cody. They searched for a couple hours and then decided to call law enforcement. They searched all through the night, and at 7:30 a.m., Cody emerged from the wilderness and walked over to the home of a woman named Beverly. She said that the boy had arrived at her house and asked for directions, but instead she decided to call the sheriff because obviously the boy was so young. Like, a 6-year-old showed up at her house and was like, "Hey, can you point me back home?" So she called the police. Now, when he returned to his parents, they obviously asked him what the heck happened and where he had been all through the day and night. He said that he had been walking through the forest by himself, and when it got dark, coyotes started to follow him everywhere. He said that he had to climb a tree to get away from all of them. He also said he was hiding from the helicopter and motorcycle that he saw in the forest. But what was very odd about all of this is that police said helicopters had never gone over the forest in the time that he was missing. And obviously, no motorcycles are going to be in the forest either, right? So everything he was saying about what happened to him just didn't add up. And this was another case that they never actually found out what happened. But thankfully, he was also returned to his parents. I mean, this is probably the most I've ever talked about in a video where the kids were actually returned, which is great. But unfortunately, for this very last story, it is not the same outcome. This last story is of Megan Jivenix. She disappeared on April 30th of 1980, and she was only 2 years old at the time. Megan and her mother Donna lived at a very remote home in Montana. There was only one road that led to the residence. And on April 30th, Donna put Megan out in their unfenced yard to play while she did a few chores. And when she returned, Megan was gone. Now, I never want to judge families, but I just can't believe that people would put their kid out in an unfenced place just to leave them there. I feel like a lot of the stories I actually talk about are when parents put like their 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds outside by themselves, and when they come back, they're gone. It's just like, it's super tragic, right? Now, Donna knew that nobody had driven down their road because she would have seen and heard them. They were in a very quiet place, very isolated. Any cars that drove up would just like make themselves known. She searched everywhere around the house with no luck, so she called law enforcement. Now, the area she had gone missing had huge mountains, large trees, and very dangerous wildlife. So tons of people started searching for her on horseback. Even all of the neighbors were interviewed, and they said that they had never seen any cars pull up. They never saw anything unusual. Now, there was a speculation that a grizzly bear had been in the area and had taken her, but no evidence of this was ever found. What was super strange about this case is that she disappeared in the spring, but the night they were searching for her, there was this terrible snowstorm, which is incredibly rare that time of year, but for some reason this repeatedly occurs when people go missing. There are so many cases of kids who have gone missing in the spring, and for some reason there was a snowstorm when they were trying to be searched for. Now, to this day, she has never been found, and her parents truly believe that she was abducted that day, even though there was no evidence to imply that. There was no car around there, no neighbors or anybody saw anything weird happen, but that is what the parents believe, and it's super tragic that she was never found. Anyways though guys, those are the 3 stories I'm going to be mentioning today. If you want me to continue doing this series, I will do the one for May next, but give this video a thumbs up if you like this sort of content. I know it's like dark and sad, but it's also really interesting, and it's also good to sort of spread awareness about these people that were never found. And yeah, before I get going, just a reminder, if you would like to check out my mom's new butterfly line, I put it down below in the description, but I hope you guys have a really good rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!